Happy Canada Day. In this video, I'll be showing you a Wolverine or X23 build guide in Baldur's Gate 3. I wanted to pick a fictional character with Canadian origin, and Wolverine was born in Alberta. I also previously did a build on Deadpool during the Deadpool and Wolverine release, as Deadpool is another Canadian-based character. So I'll link this in the description and in the comments as well, but I'll be taking you through an interesting combination using two classes that I think makes a very powerful but also fun Wolverine build. And we'll also be taking the aspect of the Wolverine too to make this a perfect thematic build. Also, you can see the Wolverine multiverse behind me there, but I'll be playing as the X23 character. So we'll first off be starting with the Barbarian, as Wolverine rages out, and so do Barbarians, which gives us the rage at level 1. Our ability scores are where this really comes together. So this is a dexterity-based build. We also need some constitution, and we need some wisdom when we add in the monk. We can also use strength potions if we wanted to dump our strength, which is going to be a main stat here. So we could go with something like this, and then with Tavern Brawler, add a +1 to our constitution there. Alternatively, you can dump your strength and use a strength potion. If you want to go that route, we'd go all in and put our wisdom up to the 15 there, and we go with the stat spread like that. However, you can use the previous stat spread if you don't want to use strength potions. This just maximizes the overall damage. Level 2 gives us our danger sense, advantage in dexterity saving throws against trap spells and surfaces. That's really nice because fireball is annoying. We also got reckless attack there, giving us advantage if we end up missing an attack, which is nice to give ourselves a little bit extra of hit chance there. And into level 3, this is when we're going to take the Wild Heart Barbarian, because Wolverine has a healing factor. We don't really have a full healing factor in this game. However, we can go with the Bear Heart, which is the tankiest subclass choice that we can go with. So when raging, we can use our Unrelenting Ferocity to heal ourselves, so somewhat like a healing factor. But in addition to this, we get resistance to all damage types except Psychic. This is huge, making us a very tanky character. So we'll roll with that. I do like the Tiger Heart to apply bleed, because then we can take the aspect of the Wolverine. But this requires a weapon attack, whereas the Bear Heart doesn't. So we'll go with this because we're going to be doing claw attacks. Unfortunately, there's no true claw weapon in Baldur's Gate 3, but I'll show you a cool workaround that I came up with. Now at level 4, we can, and again, change our Bestial Heart at any time. We're going to take a feat, and I would recommend taking Tavern Brawler at this point. This will double our damage on any unarmed or improvised weapon attacks. So we can throw things like the returning pike to give ourselves a lot of extra damage. Also at close range, we can do unarmed strikes, although we want to wait till we add in the monk. Monk's kind of an oxymoron because Wolverine's not very chill, but it works here. So level 5, we get the extra attack, big power spike, increased movement speed, and then we can change our Bestial Heart if we'd like. But we'll just roll with this here. And then into level 6, this is when we can actually take the aspect of the Wolverine. So this will make it so that we maim targets whenever they're bleeding or poisoned. So we want to obviously apply bleed there. When a target is maimed, that means that we get to remove their movement speed. They can't move. So this is really good. And it fits obviously thematically, adding in Wolverine to Wolverine. The jokes write themselves. So that's what we'll be rolling with there. And I would recommend at this point adding in the monk. This gives us our Flurry of Blows bonus action ability, which is really nice to have. And then into level 2, we get our bonus action, dash, disengage, and step of the wind there. And then into level 3, we get to choose a subclass. I think that the open hand monk is the best choice here. This gives us our Flurry of Blows, stagger, push, and topple, which are plenty strong. And this is just the way to make it as strong as possible. Way of the Shadow is nice too, but I think that the open hand gives much more benefit. And at this point, we can go with another ability score improvement. And at this point, Alert is another good choice for the +5 initiative. But we can also increase our overall dexterity there for better survivability, or increase wisdom, although I do think dexterity is better because it can increase our initiative and armor class. Wisdom would too, but we get our, obviously we already have an extra attack, but we get stunning strikes here, which are very useful to have because using a key point to potentially stun a target takes them out of combat, which is really nice to have. And then level 6, we get to add manifestation of body, mind, or soul to that damage, which is great. We also get the wholeness of body, which gives us an extra bonus action, regains half our key points. And we also can overcome resistance and immunity to non-magical damage, but this is a big one, so adding these to our extra damage riders, so pretty strong to have on here. So getting into gear, we can go with the Horns of the Berserker, because he is kind of a berserker, adding necrotic damage on our attacks, which is nice because that necrotic damage can be doubled on our Flurry of Blows, so that'll add us a little extra damage on our attacks. Also got the Cloak of Protection there. It's really your choice on what cloak works best. The Vest of Soul Rejuvenation, this gives us an unarmed strike against an attacker that misses in a +2 armor class, which puts our AC at 25, which is great because we're not using a shield, so that's actually very strong. But I'll show you another trick that we can roll with here. So yeah, this will give you healing if you succeed on a saving throw, which we have advantage on dexterity ones. Now the Helldust Gloves, the reason I went with these is your unarmed attacks deal an additional 1d6 of necrotic damage and can possibly inflict bleeding. So whenever we inflict bleeding, that's going to trigger our aspect of the Wolverine and reduce our movement speed to 0. So we can do that on our unarmed strikes, which is very nice. Then we also have the evasive shoes. However, if you really want to maximize damage, the Gloves of Soul Catching would be better because this gives a 1d10 to force damage versus the 1d6 of necrotic and bleeding. But this just works better with our build. Again, you can use the other one if you want, because we can also use the Amulet of Ball. Now, this doesn't actually work in honor mode, so just be mindful of that. So yeah, the Amulet of Ball doesn't actually apply the bleeding. It only applies on targets that have not been hit yet. But we want to have a lot of health. So with the Amulet of Greater Health, that puts our Constitution up and gives us 149 health, which gives us a +6 of Constitution to our armor class, which is great for survivability. So we're actually very tanky. I also put the Ring of Free Action here, so we ignore difficult terrain and cannot be paralyzed or restrained. You could also put the Ring of Flinging, and again, use throwing weapons for an extra 1d4 of damage. And Tavern Brawler also works with throwing weapons, so it actually works pretty well here too. You can also add in the Killer Sweetheart if you wanted to for a different option, or the Ring of Regeneration, which will give you healing each turn. This is probably the true best item for Wolverine. It gives you a healing factor. And there's a lot of other gear in the game, like the Broodmother's Revenge, which is a necklace that will give you poison damage on your attacks, and then you can... There's a lot of different ways we can go about doing this, but this will give you a healing factor. I also put the Ring of Protection just to make it even tankier. Another good choice is if we wanted to do throwing weapons, you can actually do your punches and then pull up Nyrelna. Nyrelna also applies bleed with the Zephyr Strike attack, so this here can apply bleeding on the target, one of the few attacks that actually will do bleed on an enemy. So that can be a good choice as well, as it works thematically with this. And then at this point, we can then add in a shield, which boosts our armor class up to 28. So that still keeps our Constitution-based armor class from the Barbarian, and then we get an armor class boost from the shield as well. 28 AC, pretty nice, and then, yeah, that makes us extremely tanky. This isn't really a claw weapon. It has 3 spikes like a claw, and it applies bleed. You can kind of roleplay it, and it has a bonus from throwing attacks, so that's really why I went with that there. But if you want to do your unarmed strikes, that gives you up to 28 damage, and then if we throw in Nyrelna, this does a little bit less, or I guess we're up to 29 damage, and it adds a fire damage from the Helldust Glove. So it actually can apply necrotic and fire damage from this item, making it actually an interesting combination. So you don't have to use Nyrelna, but we do have Tavern Brawler to boost it up even further, making it pretty strong. And then in our offhand for the cross or for the bow, I'd recommend going with something like, you could go Titan String Bow if you wanted to early game. The Dead Shot gives you increased critical hit chance. And then even the, if you have the Hull Rider Longbow, that gives you a +3 to your initiative. So what's great about this is we got a bleeding main attack, and our offhand attack, our bonus action can also apply bleed. And then we also have Wholeness of Body to give ourselves that extra bonus action as well. So a lot of great choices here to make this actually quite strong. Don't forget to add in your manifestation of body, mind, or soul. Depends if you want to get the psychic damage with the Resonance Stone, which will double it, or necrotic damage, which is also a good choice because we already have necrotic damage. So you can see there, bonus action up to 70+ damage there, which is doubled because that psychic damage actually gets added a little bit even further. So yeah, I'll show you off what this looks like in combat. And into combat, so we first want to start off with the Rage. Now I use the Wholeness of Body before going into combat because we want that extra bonus action, although it's better to use it in combat because it'll regain your key points. So we're going into our Rage here, which gives us that extra resistance. We do additional damage on melee and improvised weapons and when throwing attacks. And we get advantage on strength checks and saving throws, and we take half damage from everything but psychic. So we got bonus actions to dish out a ton of damage. We got a heal here if we need it. We also got our reckless attack. What I would recommend doing is we want to set up bleed as soon as possible so we can rush through here and go ahead, applying potential bleeding on multiple targets, which is perfect. And you can see there, they're bled and they're also maimed. So we got the maim off on them. They can't move, so they're stuck in place if we end up applying the bleed to that enemy, which is perfect. Now then we can also follow this up with a throwing attack. The nice thing about Nyrelna is it'll return to your hand, so we don't have to worry about really losing it unless you start combat this way, so just be mindful of that. So we got the attack out there, perfect, and then we also have another attack, so we can, again, throw Nyrelna. This is kind of like a claw attack, I would say. So boom, that does thunder damage in a radius. Then we got our bonus action attacks. You can, again, just do a punching attack, but to maximize damage, that'd be the way to do it. So we'll go ahead with pushing the target, and potentially, or we can knock them prone there. We can see that does quite a bit of damage. You can open with that and give yourself a free unarmed strike as well. So with those 2 bonus actions, pretty useful. And you saw there, we were able to take them out in one hit. So that worked well too. But main thing is we now, with haste, have a 20 or a 30 armor class, which is pretty crazy on a defensive character that also takes half damage from every damage type. So yeah, we're like Wolverine. We can't get hurt that much. You know what's great about this is we can also get rid of our weapon if we wanted to. And then we just go ahead with main hand attacks there. And we actually keep our shield for the armor class boost. So that is very nice. And then we can go around punching, potentially setting up our extra damage. And bleed. So we'll go ahead with a punch there. I was able to knock them out. We'll go punch this target here. So pretend it's a claw attack. That was pretty good. And we'll finish off this target here with another punch, potentially making them bleed or just completely clobbering them. It's clobbering time. And then we'll finish off one more target here, whoever's got the most health, because our flare blows is extremely powerful. And if not, we'll knock them prone. So boom, that was enough to take them out. Kind of looks like we got a claw attack there. Unfortunately, I got hit, so we got to go back into a rage. It looks really funny though when you hold the fist up when you're ready to punch someone there. So going into rage kind of removes that, but we'll just go ahead with another unarmed strike. And again, trying to apply bleed on targets because that's going to, again, maim them and reduce their movement speed. So it can actually be pretty powerful there. Didn't get the bleed off on this target, but that's fine. We'll just go with another claw attack there, finishing them off. You could also go and turn into the Slayer form if you wanted to for an extra oomph and I guess a bit more power there. And you can also do a stunning strike as well on the target, so that can potentially stun them and bleed them and then also knock them out like that. So my game randomly crashed there, but I just want to say you can throw Nirelna, drop it if you don't want to use it. You got bleed to maim targets with our aspect of the Wolverine. And I just want to say a happy Canada Day to any Canadians that are watching or any that aren't Canadian, and hope you all have a great day. Thank you so much for watching. Hit the subscribe button below if you enjoyed, and we'll see you all in the next video.